Welcome to Emotion Well, EFR's podcast about all things related to emotional well-being. I'm Johanna Dunlevy, the EAP Operations Director for Employee and Family Resources, also known as EFR, and I'm the host of our podcast. As an FYI, EFR is located in Des Moines, Iowa, and we are Iowa's first employee assistance program and provide a variety of services you can learn more about at www.efr.org. I am very excited to welcome back to Emotion Well two of my colleagues who have also been on the podcast in the past. Tammy Hoyman, CEO at Employee and Family Resources, along with Haley Pederson Hundley, our Substance Abuse Program Director. Welcome back, ladies.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes. So I had to dig up Haley's episode from the archives because it was way back in 2020, and she talked about her journey through maternal mental health. And Tammy's episode was more recent than that because she spoke when we had our 60th anniversary back in 2024, and she talked about the history and heart of EFR. So welcome back, ladies. We're really excited to dig into a new topic today that both of you are, I know, very passionate about, and I'm excited to learn more about, and that's chance for change. So before we get into the topic, just briefly reintroduce yourself. We'll start with Tammy. Give our listeners who maybe haven't listened to your prior episodes a little info about you and what makes you a great guest for this topic.
All right, great. Thanks, Johanna. As you mentioned, I'm Tammy Hoyman. I am the CEO here at EFR. I have been in my role since 2009, but I've been with the organization almost 30 years, coming up on my 30th anniversary in May. And I love all of EFR's programs, but when I get talking about our restorative justice diversion programs, I get especially excited. These are some programs that I think are really, really effective in the community and offer such a valuable opportunity for our youth and families. So I can't wait to talk more about it.
Yes. Haley?
Hi, I'm Haley Pederson Hundley. I have been with EFR just shy of 10 years. This July will be my 10th anniversary here. And I started in the role as a prevention specialist and have worked my way up into the position I'm currently in as the Substance Abuse Programs Director. I was fortunate enough when I very early on in my tenure at EFR, got to attend a restorative justice training that was hosted by Tammy, our CEO, and fell in love with the program and got to see the way it really impacted individuals' relationships with their family, the way they viewed the particular incident that had happened, and really just fell in love with the program and wanted to continue to grow and develop it. So really eager to be able to continue this conversation and share some more.
Yeah. Before you get into what community-based services are, Haley, I'm just wondering, Tammy, if you could just give a brief overview of Employee and Family Resources, because we do a lot of different things in workplaces, schools, and communities. And for people who maybe are unfamiliar with this aspect and more familiar with maybe the EAP or the SAP, could you just give us a little overview of the different departments here at EFR, and then we'll dive into community-based services more with Haley.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very unique business model at EFR. The largest of our programs is our Employee Assistance Program and Student Assistance Program. These are services that we've been providing since the mid-'70s and serve hundreds of thousands of employees and employers and students and families across the U.S. And we also have community-based services, which I will leave the details to Haley to talk about. We also have substance abuse services, and these services are primarily here in central Iowa, and they are a very valuable opportunity for people, primarily people who've been involved with the criminal justice system, to access substance use disorder treatment or support services in lieu of punishment through the criminal justice system. So I think people who know EFR tend to think of us as one of those three things, depending on where they work in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the folks who know us from employee assistance don't realize we have these very rich community-based services here in Central Iowa. So, so Haley's going to talk about community-based services, but we did start our diversion programming in 2005. So it's not a new program, but it is a revived program. And Haley can explain how it fits into the umbrella of community-based services.
All right. And we'll come back to kind of the history of it after Haley gives an overview of community-based services. But I agree, working in the EAP for the past 10 plus years now, people that have our EAP or schools that have our SAP, they're very familiar with the services that we provide that they have access to or that they're engaged with, but they're always a little bit surprised when they find out that we do other things. So I think this is a great platform for us to get the word out, and especially in the community here in Central Iowa. So Haley, give us a deep dive on community-based services, what it looks like, what we're doing right now in the community, and your role in how you work with community-based services.
Absolutely. So for those who have been listening for a while, you probably heard us historically speak about prevention. And prevention is really the starting point for our community-based services department. So over the past couple of years, our community-based services team has seen a tremendous amount of growth in the opportunities that EFR has been awarded in order to expand the reach and the different services that we're able to offer to Central Iowans. So our program really starts with substance use disorder and problem gambling prevention services. So we serve 4 primary counties for those specific grants that we're working on, where we are able to implement evidence-based strategies in order to try and promote public health initiatives and reduce risks for individuals in the community around substance use disorder and problem gambling prevention. A couple of years ago, an opportunity arose for us to expand our diversion services. So I will let Tammy in a little bit speak more about the history of diversion, but this was an opportunity for us to be able to expand the reach and be able to have some dedicated funding specifically towards diversion in a restorative justice fashion. I worked with Tammy to write the particular grant that we ultimately ended up being awarded, and we were able to expand our diversion restorative justice programs to the entire 5th Judicial District of Iowa. So this has allowed us to really have individuals in the communities serving the needs, and I'll talk a little bit later about the different tiers of diversion that we have and the different aspects, whether it's community-based or school-based, a little bit later as well. But that grant really allowed us to expand into that diversion space in a way that was at no cost to individuals in our community. The other opportunity that we were recently awarded was community health promotion work. So that's kind of the third sub-department under community-based services is community health promotion. We are currently doing a lot of work in Polk County, specifically surrounding suicide prevention, and really working to implement policies in a way that creates sustainable change in our community. So those are kind of the 3 subgroups of our community-based services department, and I oversee the different grants that we have that we are able to implement for our Central Iowans.
And I've heard you're an excellent grant writer.
Oh,
and that's why we're creating the grant.
Thank you.
It's true.
And Hale Berglund was on the podcast in September, and she is working on the health promotion grant that's around the suicide prevention.
Yes.
I'm just going to rewind. Can you share the 4 counties that we're currently working in so our listeners, especially our Central Iowa listeners, can have an idea if we're in their counties?
Absolutely. So the 4 counties that we are serving for substance use disorder and problem gambling prevention are Polk County, Warren County, Jasper County, and Marion County. So EFR is boots on the ground, if you will, in those counties, serving schools, serving coalitions, community stakeholders, in order to really try to build those relationships in order to make sustainable change that creates ideally long-term public health positive outcomes.
And then the 5th judicial branch or
Yeah.
district, the 5th judicial district,
Yes.
that is the Des Moines Metro and beyond, or where does that
Yeah.
extend
So
to?
it is a large subset of counties. It is, Tammy, you might be able to
Is it
answer
Southern
better.
Iowa?
Yeah, it goes all the way southern.
Polk County, and I think it's a total of 17 counties.
Okay.
So it's a very large geographic area, but we are focusing, the needs assessment that we conducted for the grant showed that there was the greatest need, close in Polk County and those counties surrounding
counties.
Polk
Okay.
County, more in the metro area,
Okay.
right? But we are able to provide services throughout the whole 5th Judicial District,
Okay.
and are over the life of the grant, we will be doing that.
Excellent. And do we know how long the grant lasts? And maybe you said it, Haley, and I just glazed over it, but how long is the grant in place?
Yeah, so each grant has its own lifespan, if you will, and then the hope is always for an extension. So the
Sure.
current grant that we have is slated for 18 months, and then it can be renewed again for another year to another 18 months, really at state discretion.
Okay.
As long as they're determining that we are doing the good work and that our data is showing that what we're doing is evidence-based and making a difference, we foresee the funding being pretty sustainable for us.
Excellent. So Tammy, when you were giving your overview of EFR, you mentioned something about 2005. And is that where this all starts?
Yeah. I love talking about the history of this model, because really that's what it is. And before I get into that, I want to try to tie up some loose ends, because I think we've talked about diversion, we've thrown out chance for change, and I think, maybe we've taken it for granted that our listeners understand what diversion programming is.
Yes.
So in general, diversion programming is an opportunity for youth or adults who have violated some kind of a policy or some kind of a law to have an opportunity for an alternative experience from our typical retributive justice systems. So when we're talking school-based, we're talking, you violated a policy, therefore you're suspended or you have some other consequence. And it's largely based on punishment. And then conversely, in our communities, you broke a law, therefore you're charged criminally. And if you're a minor, you're referred to juvenile court services. If you're an adult, you are then arrested and sent to court, and then you're sentenced to some sort of punishment. Sure. So diversion is a different way of handling quote unquote wrongdoing in a community. And the concept goes back to ancient times when people lived in largely unmonitored societies, and really they had to monitor the relationships they had amongst each other themselves. So our modern day diversion programming, and what we're really talking about with this particular program, started with a request from one of the assistant county attorneys, a bureau chief at the Polk County Attorney's Office around 2004, who was seeing a revolving door of youth coming through charged with a minor in possession of alcohol. And he came to my predecessor stating, what we're doing is not working. Is there anything that other communities around the country are doing that we could do that could be more effective? So we are affiliated with the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. And my predecessor reached out to colleagues across the nation and found, for the most part, it was just, that straight drug and alcohol education that we all know isn't terribly effective. You go and you sit in an auditorium and somebody tells you all the risks and harms and, So he did connect with a colleague in Longmont, Colorado, and it was a colleague who started an organization called Teaching Peace, and they were having really good outcomes with youth who had been caught shoplifting, and they applied restorative justice principles to a diversion program. So instead of just treating these kids through the criminal justice system, they were allowing them to come through this program that was based on restorative justice principles, which are accountability, identification of harm, and then identification of repair of those relationships that were harmed through the violation or the law that was broken. And the big thing that probably seems more obvious to people about this is that our laws and our policies and our rules are really out there to help protect the relationships that we have in our society. And so the restorative justice concepts really make a lot of sense when you look at it that way. So we partnered with Teaching Peace out of Longmont, Colorado. They were the restorative justice experts. We were the alcohol prevention or alcohol professionals. And we put together a program that we called at the time Rethinking Drinking. And it is a drug and alcohol restorative justice model. And currently we have adapted the model to address not only underage drinking, but other offenses, other petty crimes. It could be used in the schools for youth or students who have had policy violations, or youth in the community who have had, they've broken some sort of law. And these are supposed to be more first offenders, low-level crimes. And, but the thing that was so amazing when we started back in 2005 was the community collaboration. So we had the county attorney, the prosecutor on board, we had juvenile court services, we had all law enforcement agencies across Polk County, and everyone was on board that we wanted to do something more effective. So the referrals would come in, the youth would decide whether they wanted to take advantage of this opportunity or not. The other powerful thing about it was that, and it is, that it requires the youth and a parent or a supportive adult to participate. So it is very comprehensive and very engaging. So from 2005 till 2011, the program grew and was getting a lot of traction. We were seeing probably upwards of 100 referrals a month. So we were seeing over 1,000 youth and their family members in a year. And we were getting very promising outcomes, good data. And we ended up, there was a change in the county attorney's office. That attorney that we had worked with originally retired. And then his successor made some changes, and the referrals to the program were dispersed among other organizations, and really the initiative and the momentum behind the program slowed down until recently. And when I started working with Haley and people before her, it's been 20 plus years that I've been wanting to get this thing going again. We never, got rid of the program. We just kept it on the shelf. We would use it occasionally when there'd be a referral. But now the time has come where we have those stakeholders who are now, again, interested in more diversion programming, and they're seeing the wisdom in offering a second chance and an opportunity for especially youth, because our program is focusing on young people up to age 20, to have an opportunity to learn from their mistake, take accountability for their actions and make things right with the relationships that they impacted and make things right with their community.
Yeah, I love that concept. And I think it's fascinating to think that like this has been in place for a long time, informally, right?
Right.
And we can still apply the principles today to a more formalized program. So Haley, what are we seeing just as it relates to trends amongst juveniles? And I just want to say, I remember, and this, it kind of feels like an icky term, but it's slang. Like when I was in school, people would say, oh, he went to juvie or she went to juvie. That was just like a term that was thrown out there. And it's like, what does that mean? It just had such a negative connotation. And so I'm just curious, like, what are the trends that you're seeing and how can we, put a different spin on someone who does make a mistake, right? We all make mistakes. We're human, especially kids. Kids are going to make mistakes. Some mistakes are bigger than others, but giving them that second chance, that chance for change. So what are we seeing with the rates and how can we give kids those chances for change?
Yeah, great question. So I would say our program has two different models, if you will. So we have the community-based model and we have a school-based model. So they both follow the program that was developed by EFR in partnership with Teaching Peace and is really that restorative justice framework that is utilized regardless of what the setting looks like. The trends that we see for referrals from school are a little bit different from the trends that we're seeing for community-based referrals. So I would say specifically when we're looking at our community-based referrals, we're seeing high levels of alcohol referrals. So individuals who are being caught with alcohol or individuals attending a party when they're underage where alcohol is present, they can be charged with a minor in possession. That is by far the primary offense that we are seeing come through our diversion program, our Chance for Change program. Tammy sometimes speaks to, in the development of this program, the importance of addressing minor in possession in a different way, because if we look at individuals who maybe have a longer criminal record, many times if we rewind the tapes and we go back to what that first offense is, we're potentially going to see a minor in possession or maybe a marijuana charge. And that is really an opportunity for us to be able to step in, provide education while also giving them a different way of looking at this offense, if you will. So how did this impact the relationship? So how did it impact yourself? How did it impact your family? And how does it impact the community holistically? It gives individuals a different way of looking at the situation and the decisions that were made up to that decision that ultimately led them to being a part of the diversion programming. So that was a long way of saying minor in possession is probably the primary thing we're seeing at the community level. In schools, what we see for our primary referral is going to be code of conduct violations, and most often these are vaping violations.
Okay.
So as we see, I think quite often in the media right now, we see a lot of individuals, we're seeing increased rates of vaping, and that is also ringing true in the schools right now. So our tiered system, the primary referral that we're seeing right now is the vaping.
Okay.
And I can talk a little bit more about that later as well.
That's just interesting because in 2005, from 2005 to 2011, vaping was probably not your number one referral from schools. So it just goes to show that as, society changes and as substances change and become more prevalent, we have to change our programming and we have to adapt to that. So
right, and I think I want to make a comment about that too. Back in 2005, the way that we dealt with alcohol, underage alcohol possession versus marijuana possession was completely different than how we deal with it today. Societally, marijuana use has perceptions around risks and harm, and acceptance of marijuana use have changed significantly. Shortly after we started Rethinking Drinking, we started a separate program around possession of small amounts of marijuana, and it was considered pretty controversial, because that was an indication that someone's substance use had progressed. And I think we look at it differently today, where marijuana is more prevalent, and it may be the first substance a youth uses, as opposed to back in the day, we would think that you've progressed from alcohol to marijuana. And currently we address marijuana possession, alcohol, shoplifting, all in the same sessions, because they're all violations. They're all they're all breaking the rules, and again, to protect our society and protect the relationships in our society.
Tammy, when you mentioned that the programming now has an adult accompany the minor, can you share a little bit about the rationale behind that? Like, it makes sense to me, right? An accountability partner, but
yes,
what do you think you've seen change as a result of having that adult come with the youth or minor?
It's fascinating. After having watched this program and participated in it many, many times, it is probably more typical than not that the parent is coming along and they learn as much through the process as the youth does, and they learn things from other parents. They learn things from the facilitator. They get accurate information. I think I think historically there's just been this kind of rite of passage that, of course, young people are going to use substances. It's no big deal, which, I get that. And it is very common. But I think that sometimes a parent has a greater opportunity to influence their youth than they realize. The research shows that the number one factor that a youth considers whether they use a substance or not is whether their parents would allow them, what is their parents' attitude toward it. So just saying to a parent, it's okay to tell your kid, I hope you delay your substance use until you're an adult if you choose to use. And, I think a lot of parents kind of throw their hands up in helplessness before just thinking, well, it's just inevitable. And it's really, it's just a great opportunity for the parents to get closer with their kid and learn more about what's really going on. And instead of being so polarized, they can come together on the repair part of this thing, because that's the goal, is that we walk out and our relationships have been restored.
I also think, and this is just like a personal observation, I think parents maybe wait too long to have those conversations. So I have a 9-year-old, and I'm not expecting my 9-year-old to be offered substances, but in the next 3 years, it's likely. I mean, by the time she's in middle school.
Right.
And, so talking, just starting at a young age and just talking about the different things that they may encounter. I don't know if there's an age appropriate, milestone where you start having those conversations, but I've already started just having very brief conversations, about like, you may be asked to try something and you're going to have to make a decision in that moment if that is something that you're willing to do or you want to do. And there's peer pressure and there's, risks associated, and we don't know what might happen, but you just have to be ready to make a decision. And I just think talking earlier, and maybe it just is dependent on the family and the situation too, but like talking earlier never hurts versus waiting till they're 15 when they've already been offered something, time and time again.
Yeah, Johanna, you're spot on. For our prevention programming, we say we go through the entire lifespan. So we will start our substance use disorder prevention programming in preschool, and we will go in and we will have very similar conversations on decision making, on impulse control, and really starting those conversations in an age appropriate manner as early as possible. The evidence shows leads to long-term positive effects. And so you're spot on. There are very age appropriate ways to have these conversations, like it sounds like you're having with your daughter. And the earlier we start the conversations, the better an outcome we are likely to see.
So going back to our schools, so it sounds like vaping is kind of the number one reason we're seeing students come through the program. So how does it work? Does the school, the tiered program, should we go into, I can read, I know you so well, Tammy. I know that we're going to talk about tiered programming next. So we're going to switch to tiered programming.
Well, Haley had mentioned it, and
She did. And I saw it on the flyer.
I think it's just brilliant. So I want Haley to talk about it.
I saw it referenced on our marketing collateral. And so, yes, let's talk about
Yeah.
tiered programming.
Yeah, so I want to rewind a little bit about why this program really
Yes.
started in the schools, if you'll allow me to go down this path, because it's one of my favorite stories, I think, around the development of a programming and just the beautiful way that EFR programs can work together to really make some positive outcomes. So we've had the community-based diversion program since 2005, as Tammy mentioned. And even if we were having like a trickle, if you will, of referrals, the program, slowed down, but it never really went away.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago, we were approached by a school district that was encountering, again, vaping situations, and school policies were very, very rigid. If a student had a code of conduct violation in relation to a substance, in this one particular school, they were suspended for the rest of the semester. So
Oh, wow.
there's one instant where a youth was found in possession of a vape. Per what we learned is that it wasn't that individual's vape. However, the school's policy was very specific, and she was suspended for the rest of the semester. What we know is that school may be that safe place for that youth. That may be where they are having their supportive adults. That may be where they're getting their meals. And that's where they get their education. So for a youth to be suspended for an entire semester really was very, very punitive. And we saw this as an opportunity to be able to offer services, education, and help that individual go down the path of restorative justice.
Yeah.
So in conversations with this school, we developed a tiered program. And so our diversion program, we took the same model that we use in our community-based restorative justice program, and we developed this tiered program. So for an individual who has a code of conduct violation in the schools that have adapted this to their policies, the first code of conduct violation, the option is a restorative justice program, so our tiered 1 program, or the parent can choose to opt to not participate, and then they would have the consequence. So all of our programs, the individuals have a choice. They are never forced into it. The individual, in partnership with their supportive adult, their parent, their guardian, makes that decision. Do you want to participate in this program, or do you want to take the quote-unquote consequence associated with the offense? So our tiered 1 program for that first code of conduct violation is a 2-hour restorative justice program. So in the schools, our diversion individuals go directly to the school, and they offer a group in the building where they are able to go through these restorative justice concepts, really leaning into accountability, harm, and repair to the harm in a higher level fashion at a tier 1 level. If that same individual were to have a second code of conduct violation, they would then move into the tier 2 diversion program, which our tier 2 diversion program is a full day diversion program. So this program is more intense around education. We go even deeper into accountability, decision making, harms, and how we're going to repair those harms. And so that is a full day, again, that they are able to stay in the school, and our staff goes to the school to be able to offer this program. And then if we were to have that same youth have a third code of conduct violation, we have offered them 2 opportunities for this restorative justice early intervention program. At that point, there's value in potential higher levels of care.
Sure.
And so when a school has EFR student assistance program, we are able to refer them directly into the student student assistance program, and they are able to have the counseling, the screening, referral to treatment as necessary. And so what we've seen throughout the development of this program is in the schools that have implemented it, we have seen very, very low recidivism. So we have seen from tier 1 to tier 2, we see about an 8% recidivism. When we look at average recidivism data, it's on average about 30%. So our program, over the years that we've been able to track this data in the schools, has a very, very low recidivism rate from tier 1 to tier 2. And in the past 2 years that we've done this program, we have had no recidivism from tier 2 to tier 3, which is really, really beautiful. It also offers an opportunity in both tier 1 and tier 2 for students to become aware of the other resources that are available to them, such as student assistance program if they're in a student assistance program school that's supported by EFR, or other options that may be available to them to meet their needs. So this long story really came from one specific scenario that we realized was an ineffective policy. And so through that, we've been able to take the model that EFR created and tailor it to fit within the schools and to help lift the load off of the schools so that they are not having to carry all of that themselves.
I love that. It's like meeting people where they are, right? Which is so important in anyone's journey through life. When they need support and resources, it's meeting them where they are. For people who don't know what recidivism means, because we've used that word a lot in the last minute or so, I think it's important just to give a definition of that so our listeners can understand exactly what you were saying, because wow, those statistics are really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for, I use a lot of jargon and a lot of words. Thank you for calling that out.
No, that's okay.
Recidivism means a reoffense. So an individual having another code of conduct violation within the school. And the way the school manages it is it ultimately could be any code of conduct violation. So maybe their first one was a code of conduct violation around vaping. If they were to have a different code of conduct violation, that would still be considered recidivism in that space, and they would be referred on to the next level of diversion of the Chance for Change program in school. So it's really any additional offense would lead to a higher tier.
And it sounds like the programming is effective and we're not seeing subsequent offenses.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I think that it's typical that you report out recidivism about how many people have reoffended. So, there's the 8%. But I like to think about the other side of that also, that 92% have not reoffended, and 100% have not reoffended after the second intervention.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so much passion around this, is because, yes, we're giving people second chances, we're providing really effective programming, and we are impacting people's behaviors and therefore quality of life. And that's why we do the work.
So how can people listening who are in the area and able to use these services get in contact? What would be the best way for someone to reach out to EFR? And I think just give another reminder about the SAP program and if a school has that, because I think a lot of our listeners are here in the Metro, and we have a lot of schools in the Metro that have access to that program.
Absolutely. So I will start with the diversion program, and then I will let Tammy reference the SAP program. Okay. So for our diversion program, we have a dedicated diversion team. So there are really two primary options for how to get in contact with us. Our phone number that will get you directly to a diversion team member is 515-471-2323. An individual can simply call, ask questions, learn more about the program, learn how could we refer someone, or is this an option in our school? We are more than happy to have all of those conversations and to provide any additional information that you may want to gather, because I know there may be lots of questions that come up after you're hearing this. The other way is an email. So we also have a dedicated inbox specifically for our diversion, and that is diversion@efr.org. And so either one of those, they're going to get you to the right team member, and we'll be able to field any questions, have any conversations that may arise, or work with you where you're at to see if this would be a good fit. This program is free of charge for anyone who is within the 5th Judicial District or willing to travel to the Polk County area, because we are able to offer it thanks to a grant that EFR was awarded. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We are more than happy to talk through any questions that may arise.
And then Tammy, SAP side of the coin, how
Right.
can people access through that?
Yeah. EFR serves almost all of the school districts in the metro area. You would have to check with your particular district, because I don't want to go through the list of who has us and who doesn't, but
most of them do.
Most of them do. The chances are very likely that you have access to the Student Assistance Program, which is an opportunity to talk with a master's level counselor, either 3 or 6 sessions. Most of our SAP districts have 6 sessions. Students are eligible for services, and all of their household family members are also eligible for services. And it doesn't have to be something that's substance related. It is any issue that is of concern to the student or the family. And you can, probably the best way to access is by calling our call center, which is a 24-hour call center answered by master's level counselors. And the local number, we have a local and an 800 number. So let's include both in the show notes, but the number is 515-244-6090, or the 800 number is 800-327-4692. And so if you're unclear if your school district has the SAP, you can just call our call center and they can check into it for you as well.
Yeah. And I'll also link to our SAP webpage from our website. So lots of great resources provided by Employee and Family Resources. We are in your community, we are in your schools, we are in your workplaces. And I really appreciated this conversation today. I learned a lot. I've worked here for 10 years. And the fun thing is that I continue to evolve in my knowledge about the different programs and services that we offer, and makes me really proud to work here. So thank you both for all the work that you're doing, especially in our communities and with our youth, because that is the next generation, right? And we're preparing them to lead healthy and productive lives. And it really starts kind of right here with the programs that we're offering. So thank you both so much. And maybe you'll be back on the podcast for a third time. I don't know what about, but the invitation is on the table. So
Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you.
Really appreciate this.
Thank you for listening to Emotion Well. Employee and Family Resources is a 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Des Moines, Iowa. We support communities, workplaces, and schools with comprehensive behavioral health services. If you would like to contribute to our mission, please click on the donation link in our show notes.